What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale, coming back at you with Mort Jensen of the NBA podcast fame, of Yahoo Sports fame, of Forbes' fame, and of course, OnlyFans celebrity. We are here to talk about day 2 of NBA free agency, fewer than 24 hours after Grant and I spent about 2.5 hours going through every single team on day 1. So I implore you all to go check out that episode. We're here to just talk about some of the biggest day 2 revelations, what we think of them, maybe the impact on moves to come. First and foremost, though, Mort, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I would like to apologize to the viewers that have already turned off the YouTube stream because I'm sitting here in a tank top, but it is incredibly warm here in Denmark right now. So I am just not taking any chances. I'd be getting a heat stroke if I wore a hoodie or something like that. So you got to accept this.
I think the apology is rooted in the fact that you are wearing a top at all. That's true.
From your perspective, absolutely. Yes. I know you have dreams. Maybe look, it's supposed to get really, really hot within the next couple of weeks. And by then, I'm actually in Barcelona when it gets even hotter. And I'm going to do some podcasts, presumably with you down there. So if I'm in my hotel room and it's like 40 degrees Celsius, you might actually have to acknowledge the fact that you're going to be live streaming with a topless Mort.
I don't know if I'll be able to focus at that point, but I guess we will find out.
For all the wrong reasons, yes.
We are live, impromptu live. This one was not a really scheduled one. So if you're there and you want to ask questions, we will get to them. Pop in the comments, like, subscribe, that whole 9. And let's root for something to happen while we're recording. We went 2.5 hours after day 1 more. Nothing happened. Well, we did it late enough. It was like 11 p.m. Eastern time. But I don't want us to do this and then something huge to happen. Like, I want something huge should happen right now. That's the time for it.
Aiden right now would be fun.
I said huge, not the Pacers like trying to reinvent the wheel from 2022 was when they gave the offer sheet.
Technically, DeAndre Ayton is a huge human being.
That is fair.
So it counts.
That is fair. Look, we'll be like adjacent to DeAndre Ayton. Let's begin with the Bucks. So I was on my way to a doctor's appointment with my wife when the news came through that the Bucks were getting Turner and then waving and stretching Damian Lillard. You can see if you're watching on the screen, all their transactions from the offseason so far are up there. Lillard has $112.6 million left on his contract. That means he's going to be $22.5 million worth of dead money on the Bucks' books through 2029, 2030, which is that's a long time. The Bucks also, to make sure they had the room to sign Miles Turner, traded Pat Connaughton and 2 seconds to Charlotte for Vasilije Micic, who I think is going to end up saving them more money via buyout. Those seconds are in 2031 and 32. Then Miles Turner's deal is for 4 years, $107 million with a player option on that final season. 2 other pieces of business for the Bucks, though. They did sign Jericho Sims to a 2-year deal, player option on the second year. And then they also signed Gary Harris for 2 years at the vet's minimum, I believe. And so we went through all their other transactions last night. We talked about them. We have to focus on the Turner, the Giannis, the Dame of it all. Mort, just what was your initial reaction when this all went down?
I think the same reaction as everyone else. I was a bit in shock because the timing of it all. First, the Miles Turner contract was announced, and I immediately went like, how? Like, this is something here is up. Like, this reeks. There's no way they had room to just sign him outright. Something wasn't, capping for me whatsoever. And then when the news dropped that it was a Damian Lillard wave and stretch, like I gotta admit, I was laughing my ass off because I thought that was such a preposterous outline for it. Now I will say this, after having soaked on it a little bit, I will say as much. I get it. Like, I get what they're trying to do here. I understand what they're trying to achieve because Dame, we have to acknowledge he was probably never going to be the same guy. Probably a full missed season, and then the season where he had, what was that, was it a $58 million player option? 59?
Basically, around there.
Basically. And he'd probably be still in the process of getting back to norm at that stage, and we still don't even know what that norm is. So the Bucks kind of looked at that and went, can we do better? And yeah, you could. You could do better. You could go get Miles Turner instead. And this is like basically the last bullet they have in giving up access, giving up like flexibility to appease Giannis Antetokounmpo. Do I trust that this is enough a year from now? No, I don't trust that. Do I trust that it's enough for right now? Probably. But in 12 months, I'm probably going to be a little bit worried.
Yeah, I think that's all right. And I saw a lot of the reaction was, I mean, like the Damian Lillard waiver and stretch, if you're planning on being a competitive team for the foreseeable future, you can't just have $22.5 million of dead money on your books. I think this sort of was, I don't want to say it's a version of self-awareness, but it kind of, the Bucks understand that like they might have 2 years for, you know, like to win with Giannis, and they're just gonna have to make the most of it and then deal with the fallout thereafter. Oh, look, Mort, we do have audio issues. Sean in the chat, is the audio low for anybody else? Let us know who is low, and Mort and I will adjust accordingly. What's interesting, like, it just, you look at it and it just seems like bad process having that much dead money on the books. But like if you're trying to keep Giannis and you have no reason to move Giannis unless he has asked for out. And so I keep coming back to the question of what else were they supposed to do this season? Like what did you want? Like what did you want them to do? If you wanted them to trade Giannis, that's fine. Like okay, that's a fair like point to make. But like proactively moving him when you don't control your own draft picks moving forward, we've talked about that at length. It rings a little hollow. I just like, was this the move to do something like this for? And it also, because Miles Turner, he struggled in the playoffs. Caitlin Cooper already wrote about it, like particularly in those minutes without Tyrese Halliburton on the court. That's been like that wasn't great for him. And now you're going to a situation in Milwaukee where, okay, you have Giannis, but like you don't have an A-plus playmaker on this team that's going to necessarily bring out the best in him. You lost Brook Lopez, who was played off the floor in the postseason, but again, Miles Turner was barely playable like in certain stretches. So, look, in Mel in the chat, I would agree that this proves that Giannis doesn't want to leave. I'm so interested to see like what else comes from this. I think the Bucks, like they have a good team. I don't know if you can sit here and say they're going to be a lot better, like in a playoff context than they would have been this season had Dame been healthy. And so what I'm not even worried. I'm just wondering is like, what's next? Is it, if you're the Bucks more, does this make it more likely that you're putting your 2031 or 2032 pick on the table now plus a swap? Or is it, we're still trying to buy time so that we have access to 3 first-round picks next summer because the one that you would draft with, you'll get the less favorable, I think, of their own in New Orleans. And then you can trade 2 future picks in 31 and 33 plus that 2032 swap. What do you think the plan there is?
I mean, look, the more picks you have at your disposal, the better, because then you can kind of use Kyle Kuzma's then expiring contracts as some type of salary filler. Of course, now you also have to navigate the dead money of $22.5 million, which is what, 13.6% of the salary cap. That is not an insignificant number. So you'll have to figure out where do we go from here? Is the Kyle Kuzma plus Bobby Portis trade plus the picks? Like, I would appreciate if they are going all in, if that's their approach. And so far, over the course of Giannis' career there, we've seen that the Bucks are basically turning over every rock and just going, okay, sure, whatever asset we have left, like let's throw in the peanut butter jelly sandwich in the kitchen as well. Let's throw everything we have into virtually every single trade just to get marginally better. So I do appreciate that level of foresight for him. If they can go in to next summer with those picks in hand, movable contracts, yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't. Because it does feel like they've sort of appeased him for 1 year, and then next year something's got to give. It's next year I'm actually more worried about it. I do think the Bucks bought themselves a year.
Right, yeah, I don't think if he has out now, that'd be wild that they did this without consulting him. I think you could also make the case that, well, then why would you do this with just a guarantee of a year? It's, well, if you're trading Giannis next summer, like, what are you trying to do the next 4 years? Rebuild. Right. And so, like, yeah, that $22.5 million in dead money still isn't ideal, but it's not going, like, you're not necessarily wasting this huge opportunity on, propping up a contender. It's just it's a fragile existence, though, right? Because you're kind of just living year to year now with Giannis, and that's really, like, it's unsettling. But again, I don't know. I don't know what their other options were. And I'm like, they will have. I like you also lose, by the way. Like Lillard is that massive expiring contract next year. Now you still have the Kuzma money, the Turner money, the Portis money, but Kuzma's the only one of those guys that will be expiring. So does it impact your trade offers at all? I think what's also risky here too is that I guess if you know Giannis, Giannis is eventually not going to be there if that's your belief, or you're just worried about what the Bucks look like 5-7 years down the line. Like, are they ever going to have the best offer for someone when you put those two, let's say 2031 and 2033, let's say they wait. Are you ever going to have the best offer for anybody? I don't like that. That's what's also very tricky about this. So I look, Miles Turner makes sense. Stretch five next to Giannis who can protect the rim, move on defense. And he has different layers to his offense now too.
Yeah,
than
he does.
I think the contract is fair. And I get what the Bucks are doing, but this doesn't make me like I kind of already assumed Giannis was going to be back next year. And so I guess that's why my perception of this is all sort of warped. I think their business, like everything else, has just been fine. Like the Gary Trent and Bobby Portis' junior contract is fine. And then the Trent/Taurean Prince stuff of, oh, we'll have your early bird rights next year, which is like the way they got them back on these deals. I get it. I don't feel necessarily good about it, but look, I know I'm parroting myself at this point. I just don't know what else they could have done.
I'm actually surprised that you say with such certainty that you think he would have been back regardless. I feel as though he's basically told them, look, we have to take steps. Like I have to see something this summer.
Yeah, there was the report that he wanted to monitor what they were doing in the draft and free agency, but then he tweets or Zeeks. What do they call them? I have no idea, but he has no idea what's going on essentially. I'm like, maybe he didn't see them waving and stretching Lillard, but if you wanted Miles Turner or you wanted them to do something, did you not think that there was going to be collateral damage as part of it? And like, he kind of has a track record of doing that too, where it's like everyone who and I think he's a fantastic teammate, don't get me wrong, but like everyone who leaves is his brother, but they leave after he essentially demands that the Bucks need to do something big, which it's just funny. I don't fault him for, I mean, LeBron's done way worse than that. So I just find that to be like sort of a funny trend. And for anyone who's still, if there's still audio issues, I did bump mine up more to 175.
I did too.
Okay. So if this ends up being too loud for people, I'm going to be very mad at the 3 people in the chat who claim we're too low. It's only with you the sound issues are materializing. I don't know. I blame you by extension.
It's fine. I have equipment that's too good. It messes up. Yes, it's fine.
It's like that Friends quote where it's the more muscles you have, the more they spasm out of control when using pain. That's really what it is. This is sort of something that's so I guess when you said that I'm uneasy about this in general, you're now more easy about next summer. Did we kind of settle on what makes the most sense for them to do when it comes, because they're all in right now, I think you could argue, but it almost is like if I'm the Bucks, like I almost don't want to make because now I want to buy myself another year next summer where it's, hey, this is what we did to keep Giannis interested now. And it's, oh, can we then go ahead and look, we just traded these first round picks to get so-and-so. So you're buying yourself 2 years almost. Right. That might be the way they're looking at this. And I think that's just the smart play there, or relative to their situation is probably the smart play. I found this fascinating. I did not see this coming. But it's just, I think if you're a team that wanted Giannis, and especially one that like maybe was a little asset limited and you needed some more assets to open up. Like if you're the Heat, if you're the Knicks, if you're the Spurs and just want more information on what's in place, I would argue that this is actually a good development for those teams as well.
Yeah, that's a really good catch. Because now you can go in, the Spurs specifically, because I still think that's the team, right? Like they have so many young guys, another year of them. Like if Steph Castle takes another leap, like if he becomes a dependable shooter, for example, his trade value just like skyrockets, and that would give more data to the Bucks. Like, oh, can he be our fundamental piece? What about Dylan Harper? If he's a Rookie of the Year candidate, maybe there's something there. That's a really good point. There are definitely going to be teams who are going to be monitoring this very intensely over the next 12 months for sure. The thing to me is just, it all comes back to Giannis, because it does feel like if the entire organization's key focus is make Giannis happy, make him stay, to the point where they're basically just saying, we want him back more than we actually want to build a contender. You know what I mean? So I there's a part of me that's a little afraid that if you keep having this very singular mindset of Giannis, 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 the satisfaction of Giannis, you're going to perhaps lose out on some interesting avenues and maybe actually try to do what he wants you to do, which is build a contender. But now it's done is done. Like they're going to have Lillard on the books for the next 5 years of dead money. That can't really turn back the clock now. It's done.
No, there's just going to come a point, and I think this was part of their calculus, is that there will just be a time where that money's on the books and Giannis is not. And at that point, if Giannis is not on the books, that money that is on the books really just doesn't matter. Disappointed, not man. Suns fan says, is Bradley Beal the next wave and stretch candidate? It's a I mean, Phoenix is probably jealous because they legally can't just wave and stretch Bradley Beal right now because you can only have, I think it's 15% of the salary cap in dead money on your books. And because of specifically Nasir Little and EJ Liddell, who they waived and stretched last year, if you waive and stretch Bradley Beal at his current number, it's over that 15%. So you need Bradley Beal to give up money, which I guess depending on what he has, like what DeAndre Ayton gave back $10 million to Portland. It's like I think you need Bradley Beal to give back $14 million for the Suns to be able to legally do it. So if you're him, you'd have to say, for me to break even over the next 2 years, I need a 2-year, $14 million deal. I would assume that's out there for him, but I also think that when you're in the Suns situation where you have even fewer assets than Milwaukee, that you probably don't want that dead money on your books.
I had not seen the Aiden fact of him giving up 10. That surprises me.
It makes me think like, well, I mean, the teams that have been most interested in him, it seems, or the Lakers have been mentioned, they have the non-tax MLE after losing Dorian Finney-Smith. Now the Pacers, without Miles Turner, could be. So it feels like he could just get $10 million from one of those teams specifically.
Yeah. I mean, look, I wouldn't hate that.
The Bucks team, what do you think they're still missing when you kind of look at the lay of their depth chart now? It feels like a guard, a floor general, a game manager type? Yeah.
Yeah. They have a lot of size, which is great, but like who is their point guard? Who is their decision maker? If you're going to put that responsibility on Giannis over the course of a full regular season, his ass going to be toast when they reach the playoffs, if they even do. So, I mean, look, something's got to give here. There's something still in play. They are not done. Did they have to decline the qualifying offer for Ryan Rollins?
I think that's going to depend on what happens with Micic, or are they able to cut more money somehow, because they're working within very thin margins at the moment. And that would be, if you lose Ryan Rollins, I know that he's not like going to be an all-NBA player next season, but like that's a pretty big deal if you can't bring him back.
It's enormous deal. Absolutely enormous deal. To the point where I would just wonder what their plan is. Like, hey, Gary Trent, want to try to be a playmaker? Like, no. This is why I'm probably skeptical of what the Bucks did, although I do appreciate the balls it took here to pull this off. Like, I have to respect how dedicated they are in this mission, but it felt desperate. It still feels desperate. There's a point here where you're looking at that roster, you're looking at the future commitment in debt money, and it's going to be so hard when they have to like round out a roster. You know what I mean? Because they can't, you have $22.5 million that so many other teams will use to like round out a roster. Like, oh, we're up against the first apron, whatever. Like, we have this level of space. You don't have that space. That space is occupied and it's not on the floor. Yeah, I don't know what to think here. I don't know what point guard to go after. I who's available? Like, I would have said, go get Tyus Jones. He's in Orlando.
Right.
Who's out there? Who's out there?
Orlando.
Russ?
Malcolm Brogdon's still sitting out there, right? He hasn't signed.
That's interesting. Assuming he can stay healthy, of course, but that's not uninteresting. He knows Giannis. He knows like the organization. Yeah.
So
can we rely on him to play more than 40 games though?
Well, I mean, what's the alternative right now? Is having Malcolm Brogdon for 40 games is better than what you're currently left with, like as your backcourt playmaking? at the moment, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
like
Well,
beggars can't be choosers.
should
Honestly,
should we rule out the possibility of a trade now? I guess it's because like Kuzma's salary has to be like the primary. I mean, you have Misic, I suppose. So you have Kuzma and Misic at they combined to make 30 million. So you could do something with that. Like, is there any? If you're putting the picks on the table, we're contractually obligated to mention Kobe White. Like, if you're Chicago, is that swap and a pick enough to give up Kobe White? And then you have to give up other stuff too. But
you'll have to give up other stuff. Again, it's the Bulls you're asking. They'll be like, we can receive draft picks. That's legal.
they'll be like, no, we're not. We can't do that. Sorry.
What are you talking about? Like,
Like
we're getting Kyle Kuzma, baby.
Like if there was is like Kobe White and Io DeSunmu for Kyle Kuzma for that pick and swap, is Chicago giving up too much as part of that deal?
Okay, so if we look at it objectively and we don't bake in Chicago's absolute horrid negotiation skills, I would want significant. Well, no, I can't even say significantly more because both those guys are expiring. Their value have been higher than they are right now. But then again, you're taking on the extra year of Kuzma. No, I'd want 2 picks for sure.
Yeah, I think is one enough to get you Kobe White? Like, is a pick and a swap? If it was just Kobe White, and then you could let maybe the Bulls want to get off of Isaac Okoro, get you Isaac Okoro and Kobe White.
Sure.
I guess I'm asking.
Can you aggregate this soon?
Well, not at this moment, but they could wait and do it. By the way, Josh Giddey we have not heard about that deal, right? That's a little weird. We're not talking about that though. Anything else on that? Like, is there any? I'm trying to think of like other targets that would maybe be potentially gettable.
Josh Giddey. No.
Josh sign and trade for Josh Giddey would be the funniest thing ever.
Again, I mentioned him mostly as a joke, but perhaps we're at that point where you have to take it seriously. Russell Westbrook.
Oh man, I guess that.
There's benefit here because NBA players seem woefully outdated on where other players are. Like some players will look at Russ and go, "Yeah, he's still a superstar. Love that dude. He's like top something NBA player." And perhaps Giannis is one of those guys who just appreciates even former greatness and like applies it to current greatness. Although with Russ right now, currently, there is none of it. So perhaps that's a sell. Perhaps the organization goes, well, here's Russell freaking Westbrook. And Giannis go, oh, I don't know. Perhaps.
Maybe. What about, could they get, well, they would need a smaller salary to do it. Like if they were willing to get younger, like could you get Tyler Kolek from the Knicks?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Your matching salary, though, is like you would have to you have Tyler Smith, Andre Jackson Jr., and I don't know what you don't want to give up a first-round swap to get Tyler Kolek, though. So that would be something to consider. And
I love the idea of going younger, though. Don't you think with this move today, they're pushing in the other direction?
Like, you mean more towards the now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Veterans.
Do you think that Malik Monk could be gettable for them after the Schroeder signing? You would need the Kings to be okay with taking on Kuzma, but, we'll go from the Bulls to the Kings. What's the difference?
We've talked about him before as a pseudo point guard option, but I don't love it. He is still, to me, primarily a 2 guard.
Can they, man, they come awfully, could they get Drew Holiday back from the Blazers? That'd be interesting.
So what's the deal there? Kuzma and
Misic, that's 30. Does that do, no, they don't have enough wiggle room. They can't take back, I don't think they have enough wiggle room under I need to look at their cap sheet, but they could probably get there, but then you're hollowing out your rotation even more.
That'd be fun. Oh my God, if that happened. It's not a bad alternative if they can make it happen, though.
They could. Wait, don't they still have the mid-level here? So, yeah, they could do a deal like that. Just throwing names out in real, man, that'd be hysterical. Like, just reunite with Drew. But I think, Portland actually wants him. They give up Anthony Simons to get him, so are you giving up one of those picks or the swaps to get back Drew Holiday? Probably not.
If that happened, I would just question everything I know about basketball that Drew Holiday fetched positive returns twice in a summer.
Do you maybe if he gets like bought out or something, do you maybe emphasis on this word bet on Terry Rozier?
I saw what you did there.
There's also
Look,
Cole Anthony is
It
leaving
can't get
Memphis.
any worse, right? Like the way
Right.
he played in Miami, that was just atrocious. But like, I do think there's a better version of him in there. Maybe Miami just wasn't the place for him. Perhaps Milwaukee is a better destination for him. He can play off of a guy like Giannis who just takes up that much more attention. I don't hate it. It'll also just be like a 1-year thing. Who was the name you were about to mention?
I was gonna say Cole Rozier's too much of a gamble. I like that.
That's a good one.
I was gonna say he's leaving. He's not enough for Cole Anthony though, because he's getting out of Memphis. Which those terms are still. It sounds like he's being bought out, but I don't know how much money he gave back yet. I've been looking and I haven't seen a number on that. So,
But
and
Cole
again,
Anthony is the type of dude I would like there, though. He's young, he's explosive. You know, he's got an all-around game, athletic. Like he's one of those guys who occasionally just will get a firecracker in his ass and just run. And I think occasionally you do need more of that alongside Giannis. I think this Bucks team for years has trended a little too old, a little too slow, a little too half-court. Having a guy who just grabs a board, turns on the jets, and goes down the floor, I would love that, actually. I wouldn't just like that. I would love that.
they could also do. They could probably trade for him just using Micic. Like that's the $8 million salary for Cole Anthony's at 13.1. I would believe they would have the flexibility to do something like that. So I don't know what Memphis might not even want compensation. It'll be the same thing. Charlotte got compensation for that, but it'd be sort of a similar motivation what the Kings did, and we're going to talk about the Kings in a little bit with Jonas Valanciunas. Just like we need that lower cap number on the books to fit in Dennis Schroeder.
Right.
You have any other names you want to mention, or anything else on the this Bucks team?
No, I think we should move on. We've already spent almost half an hour on this one.
The update, breaking news. Larry Nance Jr. just signed with the Cavs. That was per Mark Stein while we were recording. I like that fit. They can use another front court guy, like another 4 or 5. I don't mind it.
Nope. It's good.
That's a good signing for them. I love that Lonzo Ball trade for the Cavs. You were there and we talked about it. We got to talk about the Pacers side of things, though, Mort. Their transactions list is so much shorter, so they picked up Tony Bradley's $2.9 million team option. So that's when we should have known, right? That Miles Turner was leaving.
Smoking gun right there.
Turner leaves, 4 years, $107 million. He reportedly, this is per Jake Fisher and I think other people at this point, he reportedly wanted to stay with Indiana, whose offer reportedly wouldn't go above 3 years and $60 million. I would like to give a quick thought on this before throwing it to you. I've seen a lot of people say Miles Turner wasn't worth what the Bucks paid him or what he offered him or even what he wanted or even what the Pacers were offering him because of how poorly he played for stretches in the playoffs, how tough it was for him during the NBA Finals. I think it's okay to sit here and say maybe it was time for the Pacers to figure out something different at the center position after 20 years of Miles Turner being in trade rumors. That being said, I look at this. It was purely a cost-cutting maneuver. They did not do this like this, and it wasn't even cost-cutting. I don't know that they understood that, the Bucks were going to waive and stretch Damian Lillard and emerge as a Miles Turner suitor. But the reason he's not in Indiana is purely financially driven. And at the most charitable way of putting this is they fucked up the management of an important asset to their team. You let him leave for nothing. Under no circumstance should that have been on the table. And you can't tell me that if you felt this way about Miles Turner, you can't tell me at any point over the past couple of years that you weren't going to be able to get something for him. So I don't understand. Like, this team just made the finals. I know that Tyrese Halliburton's going to be injured and you're kind of embracing a gap year, but you're also a team that says it doesn't tank. And but I also understand the reality of, they were never going to pay the tax without Tyrese Halliburton on the roster. But the way this unfolded really makes me think that they weren't going to pay the tax even if they won the championship or Tyrese Halliburton never gets injured. This is just again, I think the nicest way of putting it is that this was terrible asset management for a player that they could have gotten value for in a trade. Couldn't you have signed him and figured out how to cut money later at the trade deadline? Like, do we think Miles Turner was that bad that at 4 years and $107 million, another team's not going to trade for him? No. So I don't. This is like, I get where Indy's coming from when thinking about next season specifically. Why do we want to be expensive without Halliburton? But like, how do you not like figure this out? Anyway, like you bring him back and then you figure it out later. Or again, I would just propose just pay the fucking tax for once for the first time since 2005.
You more or less just echoed the piece that I wrote over at Yahoo Sports about all of this. Just to read the headline. When it came to Miles Turner, the Pacers once again took the cheap way out. And yeah, you outlined everything that I did in that piece. I couldn't agree with you more. Pacers fans and Pacers players, perhaps more importantly, should all be extremely discouraged by this development. This is a team that was one win away from winning the whole damn thing. And 2 weeks later, they turned back into being an unserious franchise. It's egregious how the quick save of a buck and also getting the money in from other teams in terms of luxury tax payments drives it so much. It's a problem. And it's something that I think eventually I'm going to try to write about, because if the allure for these teams, always trying to duck the tax, is, we get the tax penalty payments after the end of the season. If that's the carrot that keeps them from that makes them remain cheap, then we have to remove that carrot.
Yeah, we had talked about this last time. I don't know what the answer is. We did propose like you can only do that for 3 consecutive years if you don't make the playoffs or whatever.
Exactly.
But the Pacers would be an exception here because they're not like one of those teams that are existing at bottom of the barrel. So maybe you should be capped at X consecutive years of being able to even cap. But like, do you want to penalize teams for being? This is the stuff that's cringy. It's not that the Pacers like figured it all out sort of beforehand and made it to the finals anyway while not being one of the 3 most expensive teams in the league or whatever. It's just that this move, whether they like had the chance to match what the Bucks are offering Turner or not, it's cringy because this was a player who, I mean, he has value around he just got $25+ million per year from the Bucks. He had value around the league.
Yep.
So you can't say like based off the playoff, like, we should have just, even if you didn't think he belonged on this team, there's no defense for just letting him walk for nothing. Like this is just, it's outrageous. And I am curious though, what do you think what do you think it says about the Pacers moving forward in general? And I mean, like Mel in the chat, like they were not getting back to the Eastern Conference Finals without Halliburton. That's not really my point. It's okay, but like you just let who was one of your 5 most important players for most of last season leave for nothing. Like that's a wasted asset so that and why did he leave? It was because of money. It was because this team didn't want to pay the tax. That's, it didn't have anything. So you're going to tell me that they made the right decision here, but if you think that he wasn't you would have been okay if they signed him for $20 million a year, 3 for 60. Like if that was on the table, this just proves that this was purely a tax thing. It had very little to do with the iffiness of, and I'll say iffiness because I still think he was a valuable player, of Miles Turner's fit moving forward.
Yeah, I think this is going to have ramifications throughout the roster, honestly, as well. I think Tyrese Halliburton is asking some some big questions to himself and perhaps his team. Not saying or reporting anything here. I'm not saying he's going to ask out, but this is one of those things where he can rightfully go to the organization and ask, what's up here? Like, we were 1 win away from the finals. I know I got injured. I know I wouldn't be playing the next year, but I'm a 25-year-old player. I'm an all-star. If you kept Miles around, I would have come back, presumably, fully healthy at some point, and we could go again. This team should have leaned into it. I wrote a piece when the news came out a couple months ago. No, months? 1 month? Perhaps a couple months ago, when the Pacers, it was reported that the Pacers were open to going into the tax to keeping Miles Turner around because the vibes were high, right? Like everyone was kind of buying into this Pacers team. I made the point in that piece saying you should start with Turner, but you shouldn't end with just Turner. Like you should go in and get Turner the money that he deserves, and then that shouldn't be the end of it. Like you should keep spending. You should still be aggressive in your spending patterns. Now, I can appreciate and I can understand why they definitely wouldn't do that after the Tyrese Halliburton injury, but to already stub the buck at Miles Turner is egregious business. Just egregious.
We have some breaking news we're going to get to in a second, but Mel again says Milwaukee outbid them and Indy decided he wasn't worth it. Let's be honest. They've been trying to trade him for years with no buyers until now. That is factually incorrect. They've had buyers until now.
Plenty.
Yeah. So
what's the breaking news? I'm curious.
So I think anything else? Final thoughts on the Pacers? Like, do you think this could pretend that will they be more aggressively not good next year, or do you think this again? It was just so financially driven, and they think that they have enough depth to kind of, and maybe they end up with DeAndre Ayton or make a trade for another big man. Like, what do you?
Honestly, I don't know. But here's what I do know: if this is how financially motivated they are, to the point where one game out of winning the fucking title is apparently a nothing burger for them, they will never, ever, ever be serious about it again.
The breaking news, Mort, is Duncan Robinson is headed to the Detroit Pistons. Did you see that one coming?
I did not.
3 years, $48 million. I'd like to see the details on those out years because Shams is notorious for leaving out important context. But Detroit is trading Simone Fontecchio to Miami to facilitate the trade. It's a sign-in trade. I like this deal for the Pistons. Like, Malik Beasley has whatever, like the gambling investigation going on with him. You just lost Tim Hardaway Jr., which I think,
a shooter.
You know, if he was going to come back at the minimum, like, yeah, he could have been a useful player still for them, but he's so streaky. Simone they feel lighter on shooting overall, but they needed shooting because it was Simone Fontecchio didn't have the best year last season. I was so high on the money they brought. Like, I thought that they robbed him in free agency. But Duncan Robinson is just, I know he's caught a lot of shit over the past couple of years and that Miami hasn't necessarily been the greatest, even when they've, turned on the Jets sometimes in the playoffs. Duncan Robinson puts pressure on defenses with his movement, with his shooting. We've even seen him over the past, 2 seasons do a little bit more,
on the dribble,
Yeah. So I think that's a really, it's a sizable investment, but, average annual value of 16 per year. And again, I'd like to see if there's a team option or something, or if it's the non-guarantee on at least the third one. I think that's a really good, because Cade, we saw, kind of thrived when he was given that extra space to work with.
Yeah.
Helped him in transition, helped him in the half court and everything. So now you have him on this roster. I think that's big, especially because you needed more shooting, and now you get just one of a guy who can prop up volume and efficiency. It's not just he'll come in and take 2 or 3 3-pointers a game and knock them down.
Right.
No, he will get them up.
Yeah, he will. I have nothing to add. You just analyzed the crap out of him. You're right. Yes.
What else do you want to see the Pistons do? What else they got left going?
I'm not really in a rush with the Pistons, to be honest with you. I understand that they made it far or compared to expectations, and they want to keep building on it, and that's fine. If they can find a 4-man, a versatile 4-man, I wouldn't hate it, but I'm just not in a rush with the Pistons at all. I can wait a year.
Do you think Pascal Siakam's available? You said you wanted him to get a 4. What are the Pacers doing? I think they.
I think the question is how much can the Pacers save in that trade? That's the real question.
Well, look, Tobias Harris for Pascal Siakam, big difference there.
There we go.
That's only, you have to add other money, of course. So I liked the Karis LeVert signing for them. Do you like Karis LeVert better for them than Dennis Schroeder? I think I do.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me compared to Malik Beasley. Yes, I do like Karis LeVert more than Dennis Schroeder. Look, Dennis is a fine player. He's never going to crack my list of someone who I actively want on a roster. There's just so much baggage with him as someone who isn't always a guy who buys into the scheme, who buys into a locker room vibe. His investment is so heavily tied to the feelings that that he has at any given moment, and that always makes him a concerning player in my eye. So yeah, very much in on the Karis LeVert experience.
Correct Cut says, give Cade some shooting. Duncan isn't bad, quality shooter, serviceable. Is he for sure a 3-and-D guy?
3 guy.
Yeah, 3 guy. I wouldn't say he's going to give you much. You probably would prefer to put him on the most stationary perimeter player on the other team.
Right.
Is ideally where you want to put him. We journey onward into our teams that we're set to talk about. The Kings! We didn't talk much about them during night 1, Mort. But they officially signed Dennis Schroeder. The number, we had the report that he was going there, but the number was TBD. It's 3 years and $45 million, which I'm going to assume is like, and it's supposed to be for the full non-tax MLE. I think that's a rounding error, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like 3 years and 44 plus. So they have him. They traded Jonas Valanciunas to Denver for Dario Saric. The thinking being, hey, we shave $5 million in salary. That's going to open up the wiggle room for us to sign Schroeder. They also picked up the team option on Keon Ellis. We talked about that last night. He's still extension eligible, as well as picked up the team option on Isaac Jones. No more Jake LaRavia. I did find in another just like, this just in and depressing King shit, when I think it was of the third aprons, Yossi Goslin posted about now that were able to trade Jonas Valanciunas for Dario Saric, they won't have to trade Malik Monk to make way for Dennis Schroeder. And I'm like, this is just, how are we here? How is that real life? I understand the need for Schroeder, but this is someone who's been on 12 teams in 4 months. What is that? Is that accurate?
Perhaps 48 teams, really.
Okay.
Thereabouts. I will never understand the league's overall fascination of Dennis Schroeder. I won't. I don't think he's particularly efficient at running an offense. I don't think he is necessarily a strong defender. I don't think his playmaking is remotely interesting or special or particularly impactful. I am like, yes, he will have a couple months here and there where he will look like a fully fledged starter, and that is almost exclusively because the ball is actually going through the basket. It's not because, like suddenly Schroeder has great shot selection. No, the ball's just going in. And he just varies so much in effort and in buy-in and what I mentioned before. So good on you, Kings, I guess, for getting a point guard in there to replace De'Aaron Fox, who's like 15 levels below him. Clap, clap.
Where are all the wings on this team? Can we get any?
DeMar DeRozan's got to take all those minutes anyway. It's fine.
There's so many guards, Levine and Schroeder and Monk, DeRozan, who's basically a point forward at this point. I still wouldn't call him a wing. Devin Carter, just like all, and now it's, by the way, like now you kind of have an issue at backup center again because Jonas Valanciunas is gone and he was pretty good for them. I don't know what's going on in Sacramento. This is just like,
you know what this is? I know what this is.
A vote of confidence in Nick Clifford. I agree.
No, you know what it is? This is a 2K offseason simulation where you just let the computer do its work with its weird algorithms and rules and whatnot. And then the end result is just like a mud pie of weird shit.
This at least kind of proves that for now, they're probably not making any core changes, or if they do, they're going to be, if anyone was thinking, they need to trade Levine or they need to trade Sabonis, this leans more towards what can they attach to Malik Monk or DeMar DeRozan to get talent in, right? I think this at least kind of clarifies, and they might have, it cements. We kind of knew that this was the direction they were heading in, but this kind of cements their direction as we're in the bottom of the middle and we really want to stay there.
Keon Ellis is going to be an unrestricted free agent next summer, right? Because they picked up his option?
Yes, but I believe they can still extend him. So I don't think that that's like a huge deal.
They can, but my point is this: if this team is like such a random crapshoot of an organization, he'll have so much more power now.
That's the appeal of, because while you can still extend him, if you decline his team option and make him a restricted free agent, you're basically just negotiating with yourself at that point, and he has to sign something because teams aren't giving an offer. There wasn't the cap space out there, and if they did, it would have been for the mid-level and you could have matched. That would have been the appeal, and now it's if you let him reach free agency, he doesn't have to give you a chance to match. He can just leave.
Right. That's my point. Would you be shocked if Keon Ellis goes elsewhere next summer? Because I sure as fuck wouldn't.
It wouldn't shock me, but like, man, that would suck. That's been like a pretty feel-good story for them.
Sure. But he's got to get paid, and he wants to go to a situation where he can win. He's an impactful player.
My prediction is that they're going to extend him before next offseason. That would be my prediction. But maybe I'm giving the Kings too much credit there.
Like, for the Kings' sake, I hope so. But for Keon Ellis, maybe not.
Wiso says Schroeder's going to be the first player in NBA history to play on every team. honestly, he should go for it at this point, right? If you could
That'd
do
be
it,
nice. Yeah,
dream
that'd
big.
be nice.
Disappointed, not mad Suns fan. Is it? Oh, that's a good question. Is it now more valuable to have an okay player on a good contract or a good player on a subpar contract?
That probably depends on the player and the position too. Like if you're a wing, for example, and you're on a decent player but on a good contract, that has something to it. Like that has some bite.
Do you have anything else on the Kings?
No, God no.
Do you think Keegan Murray gets an extension before next season?
He shouldn't.
We're gonna move on there. We're on to the Knicks, Mort. They made the biggest move of free agency to date.
They did.
By signing Gershon Yabusele away from the Sixers. 2 years, $11.7 million. That is the second apron. That is the second apron. That's the mini MLE. They'll be hard capped at the second apron. He's a player option on that final season. They also, just as a recap, they signed Jordan Clarkson, or they're going to once he clears waivers for the vets minimum, and they picked up the team option on Ariel Hukporti. What do you think about Yabu's fit in New York?
I love that they spent the second apron on him. That's great. I didn't know you could do that. No, I love the fit. I love the fit. That is one of those big needs that they've had. Having a big man who can come in and shoot the ball at a high clip. The thing about Yabu is he's also so adept at handling the ball, creating something out of nothing from the perimeter, even as he's a broad person. He is going to add, and I mean this in the most positive sense, he's going to add an element of chaos to New York's offense, which I think they need. Something that's unpredictable, where he has games where he just suddenly pops off for like 18 points on high efficiency shooting, and he's like doing it through long range shooting. He's getting to the cup. He's hitting mid rangers. Like he is just sort of a wild card, but a wild card you need to like reach that second level. Love it. I think this is a fantastic fit.
I like it. I hope the 3-point shooting sustains, and it did while he was at Real Madrid, and then he came over and like it sustained. So I think that gives you hope. Like you mentioned, there is some kind of on-ball pizzazz there. I am worried. Like Clarkson, Yabusele, okay, like they're really leaning into offense, which is weird to say about a team that ranked 5th in offense last year, but they were basically league average for half the season. But like, Yabu can do something like he's probably he's not going to give you a ton of rim protection. If you're trying to play him at the 5, you can maybe get away with it depending on the team.
Correct.
But the rim protection there is going to be spotty. But I think you now have 2 additional actual NBA players in your rotation that you didn't have. Like Clarkson is an upgrade over Campaign. Yabusele is an upgrade over Precious Achiuwa. You've now upgraded those 2 spots. So I think that's a pretty big deal. And you didn't have a lot of tools to work with. I do just look at this roster now, Mort, and there's a lot of just like bigs and guards, and like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are the only wings, like depending on where you land with Josh Hart. And I don't necessarily love, I guess, like, what are you doing with the starting 5 now? Because I thought the goal of this offseason would be, well, you want to get away from that lineup with Josh Hart that delivered a big bowl of unflavored oatmeal for most of last season. I don't know if any of these additions help you get there. You could just start Mitchell Robinson next to Cat, but then I don't know how I feel about Josh Hart and Yabusele and Clarkson. Like that's a lot of could be streaky shooting there coming off the same bench. So I like the moves for the value. I don't think you can argue with them. These are just good value moves by the Knicks. But it just feels like there's unfinished business here.
They're one wing short, I feel, right now. But look, it's day 2 of free agency. Let's see what happens. I will need Yabu to just yam on LeBron one more time at the NBA level. He did it during the Olympics.
What jersey will LeBron be wearing? Will it be at a Knicks practice scrimmage?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, that's the wing, right? Depends on what you give up, though.
I like the signing. I want to see. And to do all this without a head coach is so weird. It sounds like it's going to be Mike Brown.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with Grant after day 1. Mike Brown's reputation as a head coach has flipped, right? Wasn't he known as unless I'm misremembering, as a defensive mind earlier on, and now everyone's like, oh, he's like an offensive genius, like kind of after he spends time with the Warriors
and the Kings.
That's duh. They can't for sure. I think that he could do a lot of creative things with the roster that's there now, and I think the other thing too is like Yabu's a pretty good offensive rebounder, so you have him and Mitchell Robinson in the same rotation could get pretty freaky. You will rebound all of your own misses.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm actually pretty high on the Knicks here, even if they're one wing short, because again, I'm an optimist. Pacome Dadier, if he becomes a thing in year 2, like if a new coach actually gives him minute, if he is able to just absorb 12 to 15 minutes a game and do so, without just being a rookie, if you catch my drift, and just play steady on, that's a major boost. So it's that, and look, there's also the trade deadline. We always forget about that. Like you don't have to have a complete roster
For sure.
by the time of going into the regular season. Like then you have November, December to really figure out what do we need, and then you're starting to make plans, you're starting to make calls, and then by the trade deadline, perhaps something's brewing, perhaps something makes sense.
Do you think, is it at all weird or concerning that we haven't gotten news of Mikal Bridges' extension yet?
I think they're focused on roster upgrades, and then they take care of the internal stuff afterwards because they know they have him in hand. Like, if teams focus too much on extensions with own players during the free agency periods, I would probably prefer it to like think outside the organization, go get the guys you need, then take care of the guys you have.
So you're saying the Thunder made a mistake extending Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
There are exceptions to the rule, sir.
Do you think that Mikal Bridges is going to sign the 4 for 156? Because Grant and I also went through the list of could-be 2026 free agents, and I say this without a hint of trying to be hyperbolic for the sake of hashtag content. There is a chance, and I would say that I would say Mikal Bridges is definitely going to be one of the 3 best available free agents if he doesn't sign an extension. There is a chance that he's the single best free agent available next summer. And that's like, if you're him, if you're his agent, you're looking at that, the chance to get 4 years and $200+ million from an outside team to leverage the Knicks into a 5th year, kind of like OG did, where 5 and 212.5. I'm almost wondering if that's the most likely outcome now that he doesn't sign. I honestly thought he was going to sign it. I thought that was kind of baked in to acquiring him in the first place. And now, just because he's been eligible for it since the end of the NBA Finals, so what, a little bit more than a week?
Where's the extension?
I'm officially like, oh no, this is bad.
Is any team going to pay him $200 million, even in the open market? Are we really looking at that?
Yeah. My prediction would be if he reaches free agency next year, he will have a 4-year max contract offer on the table.
Oof.
And it's lowered a little bit. I think it was at like 219 at one point, but the cap is coming in lower. But it'll be in that range still.
Am I low on him for thinking that's too much?
We could have a conversation about that. I think that's different. I actually think there are a lot of Knicks fans, and this might have just been captive of the moment type stuff following the playoffs, that think the 4 years and $156 million is too much for him. And I don't.
Oh, no. That's fair. No. That is totally fair. It's when you get up into the 200 range for a guy who's probably like the 3rd option on a team. That's like, and I understand the defense. Don't worry. I get the defensive point, but that's a lot of money for a 3rd option.
It is. I mean, could you make the case as the Knicks that should you be considered like a serious enough contender where you're okay paying it? I mean, maybe. So that's like, so his max next year.
New York.
So his max next year would be 4 years and $213.5 million from another team. My guess would be that he gets that or close to it. And I think he certainly gets more than 4 years and 156 if he hits the open market. I think that's inarguable.
To elaborate on my it is New York point, it's a huge market. They should be able to, like, if there's a team out there that should be willing to hand out major contracts and kind of send that message to the league that, yeah, we're willing to pay. Absolutely.
I think the issue with it is I think they would pay it. If they're not going to pay him, I think he will get traded. So if he says no to an extension and they believe that they don't want to pay him or that they don't want to chance it in free agency, they will move him. I think this front office has earned that type. They have that type of forethought. But if you are willing to pay him with OG's contract, Towns' contract, Brunson is going to be more expensive, but he's the best value, one of the best value contracts in the league still.
Yeah.
You run into, like, the appeal of extending Mikal Bridges is it may give you another, like, oh, now maybe you don't have to worry too much about the second apron until 2027 rather than 2026.
Right.
And so that's the gambit of letting him hit free agency if he doesn't sign the extension.
Yeah.
Our next team on the docket that we need to talk about, you want to go for 2 hours on Toronto signing Sandro Mamukelli?
2 hours, is that even... That only talks about, that's only his defense. No.
They did. So they signed Mamu 2 years and $5.3 million player option on that final season. They also, this should be the actual headliner. They extended Jakob Poeltl, which, by the way, Shams' like structure of reporting this was just a mess. He said it was a 4-year extension. It's a 3-year extension because he picked up his player option. And he has 5 years total left on his contract now for a total of $123.5 million. This extension runs through his age 34 season. I got to say, and Toronto also moved back the guarantee date on Jamison Battle's contract from July 1st to July 9th. I got to say, the Raptors seem pretty obsessed with Jakob Poeltl. They
love him.
They traded him, traded a top 10 pick to get him back, extended him, and then extended him again when he still had 3 years left on his deal.
I mean, unless Jakob Poeltl has some explicit photos of ownership or what, I don't get it. Like, look, I love Poeltl to this extent, to this contract extension. Little too rich for my blood. That's the kind way to say it. He's a fellow Euro, so I won't be too dismissive. But when I saw that, I was pretty surprised. I really was. I thought that they would, if they were to extend him in any way, shape, or form, I thought it'd be very similar to what he was getting now. Like right now, he's getting $19.5 million per year, I think it is. Like 20 even, 20 flat. That sounds reasonable. To go up damn near 30, does it exceed 30? I think the final year it might actually exceed 30.
It's an average of 28 per, so I mean, it could.
I mean, okay, there's a new cap in place. Like, I guess it's not too egregious, but man, I still think that's a lot.
It feels unnecessary. Why wasn't this something that could have waited? So it'll never be, and I do think it's important to frame it in these terms. As of right now, it's projected to top out in the final season at $30.3 million, which would be 15.1% of the cap. That's his age 34 season. I just don't. It's not even so much the money, but like, why now?
Yeah. Could have waited a year.
You could have waited a year before you needed to do this, and then you have a better idea of who you are. Like, with all of what you have, like, Ingram hasn't played for this team yet. You have to integrate Colin Murray-Boyles. You just lost Mercier. Oh, there's apparently only $5 million. I must have missed that one. There's only $5 million guaranteed in the final season. I didn't see that anywhere. That's not on Spot Track. I get, but I would still point to why. Why now? Like, this is still not a deal that needed to be done this summer. That doesn't change the complexion of this at all for me.
You could even have gone into 27 free agency and let him test the market there.
Right. Or just, how does this season go? He's still under contract, for another year. Like, it was just weird. And did they think though that he was in danger of maybe getting cagey? Like, is that the logic here? I honestly just don't know. Like, and the player option was even it was.
Does Jakob Poeltl get cagey? Can Austrian get cagey?
Well, and
I don't
honestly,
know.
I would point to, even if he was going to opt out, like, it was, first of all, he clearly wasn't, or was at least not dead set on it because he opted in as part of this deal. But if he was going to opt out, is someone just going to pounce at the opportunity to give him $20 million a year? Like, the Bucks can't waive and stretch Damian Lillard again.
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't think that was out there. That too seemed like they just wanted. It really seems like they've been aggressive in locking guys up, right? They want to have this troop. They kind of believe in it without having seen it. They are going into this year with, in my opinion, enormous pressure to perform. Like, there are basically no excuses left. Guys have been paid. The team has more or less said this is the squad that we're rolling with. We've invested heavily in it. Now's the time to go win. I'm asking some pretty big questions about their capability of doing so. Although, of course, adding Mamu helps.
Can you want to talk about his fit on Toronto and how many All-Star games he's going to make?
Oh, he's only signed a 2-year deal, so only 2 All-Star games, Dan. Let's not be unreasonable.
Well, the second year is a player option, so does he opt out and get the max contract from somebody else?
Yeah, that's probably right. Actually, 1 All-Star game then. No, so he's one of my favorites, and along with I always have like a bunch of guys who are around the league who aren't getting enough minutes who I have a good feel about. And Mamu's one of them. Trenton Watford, who just signed with Philly, excellent value there as well. Mamu is just so rock solid. He moves incredibly well for someone who's very large. He's 6'11", and he's definitely 260. Like I've shaken in his hand. Like I've had a conversation with him as well, and like he was once listed at 6'9". I can tell you that is bullshit. 6'11", absolutely sure. And he's just such a humongous human being. He's capable of passing on the move. He's leaned into the 3-point shooting, which I really enjoy. He's crafty in the post. He'll rebound. Now, the defense is something that is probably never going to be, a strength of his. But offensively speaking, from a backup center, when he can provide you with that level of floor spacing, with the offensive imprint, I can't wait to see him in a more expanded role. I asked Mitch Johnson I told you this before, in Paris, like, why isn't Mamu playing more? And can we expect to see him in the second half of the year? And he gave me this answer where he was like, the typical, Mamu is always staying ready and whatnot. And then Mamu played, and he played well. And every time he played, after I kind of asked that question, he was just kept doing well. And it's just, at some point, you also have to get out of your own way, be that if it's, in this case, the Spurs, where they just didn't play him. I'm really hoping Toronto opens that door for him. And I'm not saying 25, 30 minutes or anything of the sort, but give him a consistent backup role with consistent minutes night to night, and he'll be an asset for you, for sure.
I hope they give him that consistent role. I mean, I guess Chris Boucher is still unsigned. I don't know how much, if at all, they want to play CMB at center, and I'm assuming they're obviously committed to Jakob Poeltl. He can get in foul trouble sometimes, though, and there's certain matchups where he just doesn't make a ton of sense. They needed like the type of offense that Mamu provides. I think it really helps, with their personnel. Where I'm a big believer in having a lot of on-ball decision makers is going to be great, but you need spacing to help to optimize that, and he will do that. And so he can play next to CMB if you want to run out Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and CMB together. Mamu makes a lot of sense at center in those lineups, maybe. And you're kind of that's sort of the trade-off of we talk about it a lot, where it's, okay, maybe CMB does some of the center stuff so that Mamu doesn't have to, and it gets easier to kind of stash him around. I think this really will help out a lot of their core lineup structures if they're willing to go to it. And I don't think, Jakob Poeltl's never been someone that you play 38 minutes a game anyway. So I like what this signals. I hope this is the team that gives him the expanded role, because I think that for the Raptors to be the best version of themselves, at least on offense next year, they almost need to. And I agree with you about what you said about their pressure. I'm the whole Masai thing. I don't know what promises were broken. I'm sure there was money and power struggles behind the scenes as well. I don't know what this, it feels like they're going to go into the season mostly with this roster intact. I know that they were linked to, they want to pull off a big move. That would probably fairly surprise me. I'm so interested, bordering on morbidly curious, to see how all of this ties together. When you just look at the current makeup of their roster.
Right.
Our next team on the docket, Mort, the Denver Nuggets. Look, I got to walk back some stuff before I throw it to you. They've had a really good offseason. And even after the Josh Kroenke's comments, and then even after the Cam Johnson trade, I still just questioned whether he was enough of an upgrade to go strictly from Michael Porter Jr. to Cam Johnson, and the Nuggets are better. I sat there and I said, this was after day one, that let's see what they do with access to the non-taxpayer mid-level. Boy, oh boy, They did some stuff. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. at the minimum, that's a good deal. Add some shooting to a roster that, like, okay, Cam Johnson, let's say, replaces what Michael Porter Jr. does on offense. It's not, if he augments it, it's not by a crap ton. And now you get Jonas Valanciunas, speaking of offense, as your backup big, who, like, this is, aside from, okay, Aaron Gordon at the 5, like, this is probably the best backup big that Denver's ever given Nikola Jokic. So they got him.
Unquestionably.
They got him for giving up Dario Saric, too. So there ends up being a use to that, signing him to the mini MLE. What have you thought? I gave my thoughts last night, so did Grant, and now we have these two other transactions to go with Cam Johnson and Bruce Brown. How are you feeling about Denver overall?
How can I not love this? Absolutely love this. It's one thing with the Cam Johnson trade. Like that, I gave that trade a B because I did think it was better for the Nets in terms of how they leveraged their cap space, so I gave them an A. But B is not a bad grade. Everything they did after that was a flat-out A, and I think that pushed the Michael Porter Jr. trade up to an A in some capacity.
Well, you could look at it and say, right, like you turn Saric, Michael Porter Jr., and your 2032 pick into Jonas Valanciunas and Cam Johnson.
Yeah. And that's a perfectly reasonable return. You also signed Bruce Brown. By the way, I want credit on that one, at least partial credit, because I've been on that for a year that he would return to Denver when his contract was over. And I think that is the perfect place for him to come back and rehab his value.
I'm going to give you credit for absolutely nothing. But
yeah, I know.
Nice job, Mort. Everyone let's all have a moment of silence. Round of applause for Mort. Go ahead. There you go.
Is this, I hesitate to ask this question, is this the best Nuggets team that Jokic has had?
Well, look at that. That was a question in the chat. Are they as good as 2022, Denver? So I'm assuming 2022, 2023. I mean, so the answer to that question, doesn't it kind of just hinge on what version of Jamal Murray are you getting? Is that too? No, I know I'm being an asshole.
Yeah.
Is that too reductive?
No, I thought the same thing. So no, you're not. That's why I'm laughing. We're on the same page. You're absolutely right, but I want to stay optimistic about Jamal because the alternative is just, that's so depressing. Well, we've just seen Jokic go through his best season so far ever. So like, I don't think we'll see a significant drop off from him. Like now he's actually got players who can back him up to the point where they don't lose, the per minute battle when he's on the bench. At least not necessarily. I'm expecting Christian Brown to get even better. I'm expecting Peyton Watson to get even better. I'm crossing my fingers that Julian Strother is going to get better. And now they also have Tim Hardaway Jr., who you said it before we start recording. He's going to feast in that role. All the amount of open threes, it's going to be insane. And then you needed to fill, not fill, but replace the quota of dumb shots taken by Michael Porter Jr., and Tim Hardaway Jr. will give you those too. That very, very true. And also now you got Bruce Brown back, who's a connector, who's a defender, rebounder, playmaker, a bit of a shooter. And that's even before getting into the fact that Cam Johnson is probably structurally better than Michael Porter Jr. in many respects, offensively speaking.
So I was going to ask you, are you at all concerned about, I know everyone, and Josh Kroenke, I guess, was alluding to Michael Porter Jr.'s health in that press conference he had. Cam Johnson has never played in the equivalent of 70 games in an NBA season. Like, do you assign like any sort of concern to that?
Of course I do. Like, availability is a thing, especially in today's NBA. So, of course, that's not something that went unnoticed. But at the same time, given the cap hit, I also just sort of think that when you're earning $21 million, if you miss a handful of games every single year, it's not optimal, but it's easier to swallow if you're on a near max contract. For a guy like him, though, I think when he's able to play off someone like Jokic, and he's never played off someone that good before, perhaps we're going to see more streamlined shots, and perhaps that's going to help him actually stay on the floor a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it could. And also, I keep coming back to, from just a value perspective, I think you can make the case that he is an upgrade over Michael Porter Jr. I think he does a better job at points playing within himself. And if he's not, so when they won the title, I feel like Michael Porter Jr. didn't receive enough credit on defense. And so I feel like MPJ's peak on defense is probably higher than Cam Johnson's. But I feel like Cam Johnson has like a consistent equilibrium. Like he's just gonna like he's not gonna be great, but he's never gonna be like terrible and completely checked out there either.
And he's a much better playmaker than MPJ as well. Like he will find those guys cutting on the baseline out of nowhere. Like there's a short roll game there that I think is underrated for Cam. So like the inverse pick and roll options between him and Jokic, and the fact that it's not Jokic necessarily delivering the final pass, that's interesting. Like I think there are a lot of intriguing, that was the word I was looking for, a lot of intriguing offensive implementation possibilities that we can look at.
And do you know what I like about this? Because we've talked about this as well. I saw just a lot of people like being concerned about their defense leading into the offseason. And I came away from their series against the Thunder, and I know the Thunder's offense can be sloggy. I came away more worried about their offense, like Denver's offense. And so the shooting from, let's say Cam Johnson, I think in net, if they're both healthy, Porter Jr. has more size, better rebounder. I think Cam Johnson's a slight upgrade, at least, like if they're both operating at the peak of their powers. Now you add Tim Hardaway Jr. to the equation. Jonas Valanciunas just as the backup five. Like I feel better about like Jonas Valanciunas can get. I feel like his floor spacing has been overrated, where it's like there's never been enough volume. I can't remember who said it, but it's a party trick. Like he cracks open like 1 or 2 3-pointers a game, but like he can mash dudes. Like that's going to give you another presence on the glass. And the bigger thing too is it's not just about winning the minutes that Nikola Jokic is off the floor. It's about giving Nikola Jokic more time to be off the floor. And so like the usage that he has to shoulder on this team sometimes is just insane. And last year he was at 36.7 minutes per game, which was very comfortably just a career high. He had never been over 35 before. And so now that he's just going to go into his age 30 season, no, I don't expect him to break down. But like this is like I think this is good. And if anything, you know, I might question, okay, how much value does Jonas Valanciunas have to you in a playoff setting? But I think that for Denver, you know what your best 5-man unit is going to be in the playoffs. It's how do we eat regular season innings, and how do we like get to a point where we're not having to gun it down the stretch of the season, or there's not just so much waffling or so much ambiguity. I think they've done that. Like there's just a lot of depth here. And now as Danny Menton mentions in the chat, can they, for their next trick, like turning Shards into Jonas Valanciunas is peak opportunism. Now, how do they get rid of that Zeke Naji contract? More.
I don't know. Let me talk about Jonas Valanciunas instead. I don't want to talk about Zeke Naji. That's a waste of time. That was harsh, but it's also true. Just imagine the situation here where there's a late game presence where they have to go get a board. Like the Nuggets just have to go get the damn ball. You can put Jonas and Nikola on the floor together, and that is going to be just outrageous size. Outrageous. They are so good at not just going, like both of them are great at just go getting the ball, right? But they're also so great at reading ankles. Like they will box the everlasting shit out of like their guy, also like relinquishing their own rebounds for someone else to swoop in. Those two, when they play in conjunction with each other, it's going to be so interesting on the glass in particular. Like good luck grabbing a rebound with those two guys on the floor.
You think they're going to play Jokic and Valanciunas together?
No, not like for a whole lot, but I do think there's going to be some overlap here and there. Yes.
Oh man, I never even thought about it in those terms. That'd be a gigantic. I mean, Houston would certainly do it. They would call the Nuggets cowards for not doing it, I would argue.
I look, I don't know the number of this, but we will absolutely see a Nikola Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas pick and roll this season. Absolutely.
Wyso says in the chat, and I've thought a lot about Deron Holmes over the past couple of months. I was not like super high on him coming out of the draft, but the idea of him as a floor spacing rim protector, I don't know how he gets minutes on this team now, but maybe what you've done is increase the number of just like garbage time wins that Denver has, and you can get Deron Holmes out there. Legend of Experiment says that the Nuggets are still going to make trades with Najee. I was going to ask you about Christian Brown. It feels like them saving the money from going from Michael Porter Jr. to Cam Johnson. Yeah. If you were ever concerned about them paying Christian Brown, I don't think you are anymore. I wondered in the context of what does this mean does it make it more likely that they extend or bring back Peyton Watson after next season? Or do you view him as, would they be willing to attach him to Zeke Naji maybe, or to even like a Julian Strother, because now you have Tim Hardaway Jr. and Cam Johnson. Like, what do you sort of make, like the Christian Brown stuff? I think I might even say that he'll probably get extended now that they kind of have some certainty with how much cheaper they are, like going from Michael Porter Jr. to Cam Johnson next season. The Peyton Watson of it all really fascinates me, though.
So it's interesting because I talked about this on the Danish podcast earlier today, and I threw out a hypothetical that I've been thinking about for a while now. Let's assume Peyton Watson agrees to a very modest contract extension. He's extension eligible, like 11 million straight, like flat, for example. Do you just do that and just say, okay, well, the cap is still going to increase and it's a flat rate, so his cap hit is going to, or not cap hit, his cap percentage is going to decline, and he's still so. Well, I mean, if it's a flat rate, it is.
True. You're right. You're right.
Not by much. I concede that, but still. But if it's 11 million a year for like 3 years, that gives you runway, right? Like that gives you runway for him to both, pop, but also like at no point would you think of that contract, Peyton Watson, 11 million a year, and go, oh, that's egregious. Like it's tradable. Isn't that like a pretty fine, like common ground area?
Yeah, I mean, if he's gonna sign for that, if it's like a cheap contract where it's less, if he's gonna sign for less than the non-taxpayer mid-level, I probably just pounce on it. I don't know if he feels like the quintessential. Maybe Jonathan Kuminga will be a good litmus test for like whatever he gets in this market. I know he's shown more offensive starting than Peyton Watson. Let me be clear. But like if he gets a lot of money in a limited market, like does that embolden him to say, oh, if they're only going to give me like let's say 3 for 56 or 4 for whatever, like for like that, I'll just test it. I'm sorry, 4 for 56 or 4 for 60 or something. I'd be very curious to be a fly on the wall in those contract negotiations. And if there are extension negotiations and you don't come to terms with one, I wonder if he becomes a trade candidate. I know how restricted free agency works, but just with Denver, you're going to pay Christian Brown. You got a little bit cheaper going from Michael Porter to Cam Johnson, but like maybe you view that as like, well, that just made up the difference between like Christian Brown's raise.
And also, if he isn't interested in signing that type of contract, if he's looking for a substantially amount more than that or a higher amount of that, that's when you pair him with Zeke Naji in the trade and use him to dump it.
So what do those two make combined? Because Zeke Naji is still like floating around the 9
12 and a half.
They make 12 and a half combined, and they have I think $4 million in room beneath the first apron right now. So you could get a $16 million player, unless my math is off there. That's like, I don't know who that $16 million player is, but that's like that's an option you can explore because you're accomplishing two things at once. Then you're not paying Peyton Watson's next deal, and you're getting off the balance of that Zeke Naji contract. Now that's not going to get you like Kobe White is someone we like. Like that's not going to get you Kobe White. That's nowhere near what you can. But like a $60 million player, like that's somebody.
See, he said 18, but Kevin Herter, same team, different guard. Yeah.
That's like you have Tim Hardaway Jr. though and Cam Johnson. Do you need him?
Yeah, that's fair.
I was thinking someone with more ball handling. I don't know who. I don't necessarily know who. I mean, like Norman Powell makes too much. Bogdanovich makes too much. The one who didn't
still
retire.
don't like Norman Powell as like a ball handler. I understand what you're meaning though. Like I still think he's more of like a straight line scorer.
This would be.
Cole Anthony.
That's interesting. They might be able to get him on the buyout market at this point.
Right. Cole Anthony would be interesting here. That's a flyer.
Correct cut, by the way. I know I already passed on the Kings, but any news on DeMar DeRozan? No, Kings just stuck with him. Okay, got it. Yeah, you answered your own question. Kudos to you. I couldn't have said it any more succinctly. Legend of Experiment. Io on the Bulls is what I'm seeing. Now, I'm wondering, you could tell me if I'm an idiot, but like, so if you gave up your 2032 second round pick with Zeke Naji, is that enough to get you Io or no? You need to include Peyton Watson.
It's an expiring contract for what is not an expiring contract. Like you're adding how many years is it? Like
2. I think
two. He's picking up his option. That seems. Again, I'm trying to not be affected by the fact that the Bulls are idiots.
What if we throw in like Hunter Tyson or Jalen Pickett?
Give me DeRon Holmes and I'll do it. Ooh.
Is that interesting with Valanciunas?
Yeah.
Like, is that something you consider as them? Yeah. Hell yeah. We did it. Well, you did it. You did it. You and
I know
Legend
I
of
did.
Experiment did it. I love that. So the second, Najee, Dayron Holmes for
Ayo.
Ayo Dosunmu. And then we could just pencil the Nuggets in as I mean, they're the second best team in the West to me right now, right?
Yeah.
There's teams in the
unquestionably so.
conversation, Houston, Minnesota, but I think
I
that
love what Houston has done, but I think Denver, because, you finally had a year where you didn't take like enormous steps back. Yeah.
I will say, if Reed Shepherd averages over 27 minutes per game, I'll say the Rockets are the second best team in the East.
Right. Because if he plays 27 minutes per game, he'll average 38 points, according to you.
Well, I know you're being an asshole,
Yeah.
and kudos to you, and you should be. But at the same time, if he is averaging 27 minutes per game, it's because something's gone right for him, though, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't play him that much.
Or
So,
if something has gone horribly wrong with the Rockets at large.
Danny Mann, the West is going to be a bloodbath next year, just like it is every year. But I'm having normally there's like, I feel like I have a very easy time of saying, oh, these are the top 4 teams.
Right.
I can give you the top 2 right now.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind
Top
of petering
3
out.
probably with the Rockets, right?
Yeah, everyone else is just like, because the Rockets feel like the one team, well, not the one team, excuse me. They feel like a team that even if they don't peak, like they have a very high floor. Because like even if Kevin Durant was just out for the year, the Rockets might still win 50 games.
Am I insane for wanting to put the Spurs up in like the top 5 area?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
They're too reliant on too many youngsters right now. What about the Clippers though?
Oh, well, they
Brook
have this
Lopez.
one youngster who's kind of good, but the
Yeah, I
Clippers,
mean, but like Champagne, is he really even that young anymore?
he still got some time, and he's actually 6'8".
Ooh, we need to do this quick exercise. So our
Okay.
top 3 teams in the West are the Thunder, and I'm going in order: Nuggets, Rockets.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think it's got to be Clippers, Wolves. Maybe not in that order.
I would say Clippers over the Wolves for me right now, because the Brook Lopez addition, I really like that, despite the fact that he's slower, older, all that. He can still shoot. He can still a rim protector. That gave them some depth that I thought they needed. I don't hate that. It's just it comes down to Kawhi again, right? Is he going to be healthy? What are we looking at here? The way he looked in the playoffs was ridiculously good. So if we're going to get that over the course of a full season, or what is a full season for him, which is probably 60 games, I'm in. That's a formidable team.
So we think we have our top 5 then, right? Even if you want to futz and fiddle with the order a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think I have my top 4.
You don't think the Timberwolves deserve like the auto like 5th in there?
I'm skeptical of a couple things. So, for one, I thought Rudy Gobert legitimately regressed this last season. I thought we saw a noticeable tick down in his production, his effort. I think we're looking at the decline. I think that has started, and I think that is real. They lost Gilgeous-Alexander Walker, which I don't think everyone has sort of like just an, oh, okay, they lost him. I don't think that is just something away. I think that is a significant loss for them. I do think their depth is no longer as big of an asset that it has been in the past, even though they never had great depth. They had some. Mike Conley is about 8 million years old at this point. I think he started humanity, actually, just like the time of man. So we're looking at a team that is old. Do we trust? Like, there are just so many unanswered questions. Do we trust Rob Dillingham to come in and take more minutes? Do we trust Terrence Shannon Jr. to come in and play effectively over those minutes? Is Dante DiVincenzo going to have a better start to this season compared to last season? And then my big question, Dan, and this is all like the uncertainties, and that's why I have a big problem like just pigeonholing them into 5th. Like a guy like Jaden McDaniels, we finally saw him become more of an offensive player, something that we've all been wanting to see for a long time. Is that going to be something that we see again this year, or he's going to be a little bit more passive? Like, there are just so many things that bother me about that team to the point where I can't lock them in at top 5.
I think the concerns you lay out are for sure fair, and I might actually even say that I think you exaggerated how much Jaden McDaniels grew on offense, which would be a problem.
All right, fair.
So,
But he got better. He started taking open shots. I mean,
so my question would be, then what would be the team that you think is like then fifth?
Like, I don't know, Dan. The offseason is 2 days old. I have no idea. Let's see.
You're sitting here saying it's not the Wolves, is my point.
No, it's not the Wolves. I don't think it's the Wolves.
Then who do you think it is? You can't say it's not the Wolves and say, well, I don't know.
I kind of said it, but then you shut it down because you're an asshole.
That's fair. I am an asshole. You got that right.
I'm just not ruling out the Spurs. I'm not ruling out the Spurs.
Do you feel better about the Spurs as an overall team next season than you do about the Timberwolves?
I kind of do.
I'm sorry. That's insane to me.
That's fine. Look, I'm okay being wrong. I'm just saying, you asked me, and I'm giving you an honest answer. There's a part of me that thinks that the Spurs have more going for them than the Wolves.
So we can remove like our performative hats for a second. There is a chance that Wemby's just so good the Spurs end up being like fourth or third in the West. And they have De'Aaron Fox. Maybe Dylan Harper's good. Like we say, there's always this learning curve specifically for guards, and I'm like, there's probably stuff done as to whether that's true or not. But like Dylan Harper's role specifically should be more streamlined than the typical like top 2 pick coming in. To bet on that with Wemby's health, how. Again,
I'm not baking that in because I have no idea. I'm not a doctor. I don't know enough about blood clots.
Why are you on the show?
I know. Sorry.
This is getting so.
that's my bad. I'll go train. I'll come back in a couple of years, more than a couple of years.
So here's, I guess, like, are there any other teams though then that belong in the mix for the top? Like, do you think Memphis belongs in there? Do the Warriors? I don't know. I can't figure out what the Lakers are doing.
I can't. No, so the Lakers is the one team that's on the bubble because, again, it feels like there's something going on there where LeBron is sort of waiting things out. If he's moved because he's dissatisfied with what they're doing, that changes his calculus. If we assume that this is the current version of the Lakers, with one added center, and then Aiden, I don't know. I don't know who that center is going to be, but I would probably put them in that conversation as well. I just don't think currently, we're discussing this on July 2nd. Well, July 2nd for me, July 1st for you. We don't have enough data on the Lakers based on the LeBron thing. So that's why I kind of avoided them.
You're right. It's early into free agency. I think that there's a clear top 5 right now if you want to fuss with the order. And we have correct cuts saying, how are we just plugging the Nuggets in over the Rockets as number 2? It's just our opinion. If you said the Rockets are at number 2, I'm not really going to fight you.
We're just asking questions, Dan. We're
just making statements and predictions.
We're asking questions to each other. No, but like, I'm not trying to be an asshole with the Wolves at all.
Well, you're doing a good job of it anyway.
I am. I really am. I just think there are significant questions hovering around that franchise. And look, they might prove me wrong. It might be fine. They might make the West Finals again and just be like, shut up, Mort. And it's great. I'll mea culpa if that happens. But something just doesn't pass the smell test here for me.
So in the interest of being forced to choose, if I had to pick my top 6 in the West, in probably like no particular order, but a semi-particular order, I'd have OKC, Denver, Houston, the Clippers, the Wolves, and my 6th team would be, I'm like way more tempted to put Dallas in here than I should be. I'll go with the Warriors here. I feel really good about them going through a training camp with Jimmy Butler. Maybe if they lose Jonathan Kuminga for nothing, or if he's back, you have to worry about the fit. I think that team, like having some practice time together, and again, everything is health dependent. You could say Steph's a trillion years old. I get it. That's totally fine. I think those are my top 6 as of right now, July the 1st, 2025. Who would your
Portland?
top 6 be? Go ahead.
I said no Portland.
Man, do you feel better about Portland or New Orleans? Who has the better record next year?
No, look, I'm being an asshole again because they have Tamani Kamara. I'm just.
I love Tamani Kamara. I hope he gets his extension. Who would your top 6 be?
OKC, Denver, Houston, Clippers. Fuck it, Spurs.
And Mel, this might help you. He says, "Is Memphis dismissed?" I don't think they're dismissed. I don't know that I trust them. I mean, the Ty
Okay.
Jerome signing, I really like that. That was good.
I did too, and the Santi Aldama extension I really enjoyed as well. So my number 6 team, it really comes down to like the whole Los Angeles situation. Are we just assuming LeBron will be back and it's virtually the same team as right now plus some center?
Maybe they go no center.
Yeah, that would push them out of the top 6 for me.
This kind of speaks to it, but the only teams I'd be prepared to guarantee won't be within like playoff striking distance are New Orleans and Utah. That's it.
Right. I mean, look, if it's top 6, we just expanded our list with one team. I guess based off what they've done recently, I could be kind and say Wolves, even though I actually think it might be the Dubs, to be honest with you. But I also concede that the Wolves just have something brewing. Like almost everything that goes against them, they'll turn into a positive somehow, some way. They're sort of like the Pacers of the West in many ways. Yeah, I'll give them that. 6 seeds, Wolves.
That comment's for you, Mort. Shout out BR for having the level head on this podcast.
That's fair.
Oh man, look. He might not be wrong. Kings will not be within playoff striking distance.
I mean, are we really that low on the Spurs in total? What is it that we?
You know what it is? It's like him and De'Aaron Fox. Like we do. Wemby and De'Aaron Fox didn't play a lot together last year. They're reliant on 2 guys. Like really, they're excellent prospects in Castle and Harper, but they're still prospects all the same. Like, do they have enough shooting? Like on this team in general, I guess there's Devin Vassell. There's Keldon Johnson can shoot it pretty well for stretches. There's Harrison Barnes is there. I would have felt a lot better with the Spurs if they were the Cam Johnson team. I can tell you that much. Like that might have convinced me to throw them into the top 6.
That I think that is fair, and I'm also not a fan of the Luke Cornett deal necessarily. I think they could have done more interesting stuff. There.
Luke Cornett getting more per year guaranteed than Brook Lopez is not something I saw coming.
No. And look, he's not bad. Like I love the rim defense. I love the fact that he is such a smart player in terms of his shot selection. I do hope he's going to start shooting threes again in San Antonio because I think that's where a lot of his additional value lies. And if he starts shooting threes again, then perhaps if I squint, I can see the vision. I thought 4 years was a little too long, and I thought the money were a little too big. But
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know how much better you'll feel about this, but the final year of that contract is a team option.
Yeah, that is at least better. Yeah, so it's 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, the West is, but I can't even remember who had this comment. Grant's gonna be proud of you for talking about Golden State. Yes, thank you, Dan. I had to get my Grant quota in there. Yeah, the West is going to be a bloodbath. I can't even remember who had the comment, but you're absolutely right. That's going to have to be its own podcast once things settle down. Is tearing that conference off. 2 more teams to get to. One's just a mini note. I'd like to pay a little homage to them. I think the Charlotte Hornets are being pretty opportunistic here. Like, just they're able to trade Vasilije Micic after getting him from Phoenix, like to Milwaukee to get Connaughton in 2 seconds, which are conveying in 2031 and 2032. Now, I don't think that Pat Connaughton's a difference maker, but he could, in theory, play for a team that doesn't necessarily have a ton of wings. And now you get 2 seconds that are super interesting because I think that one of them is Milwaukee's. So, like, that's super interesting. And I want to, like, the Nurkic trade for Sexton, Grant and I talked about, are they trying to, like, kind of win next season? No, that was just pure opportunism. Just like he fell into their lap. This is someone who, are they going to get more than Yusuf Nurkic in a 2nd-round pick if they move Colin Sexton at the trade deadline? My bet would be yes.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just wanted to shout out the Charlotte Hornets again, who I don't think they have a lot of certainty in place, but I have under the Jeff Peterson front office, I know I'm a broken record for anyone who's a loyal listener. Like the process there, it feels like it's on point. I didn't love the Salon pick. Doesn't look any better now. I like the Knipple pick for sure. I might have just taken Ace Bailey there anyway if I were them, but that's neither here nor there. I at least like that this seems like a team that knows how to be opportunistic, that is focusing on the bigger picture. No Charlotte Hornets thoughts? You want to get a LaMelo Ball take off before we move on to our final topic?
No, I think I've played most of the hits today. I'm okay, but I agree with you. I agree with you. I gave them a very favorable grade for that Jazz trade as well. Look, this is what they're supposed to do. I mean, all right, well, fuck it. Let's talk about LaMelo. We don't know how much he's going to play, so have a guy like Colin Sexton to just basically absorb those minutes if he's injured again. That's a big get. That is not nothing. Like, that is a guy who can come in and get you 18, 20, 22 points if he's playing starting caliber minutes. And I know, raw points more, but still having that skill, having that option you can go to when you need a bucket and you can ask someone to consistently do so. And also high efficiency too. People don't seem to recognize this. Everyone's so busy calling a guy like him and also like Zach LaVine, those guys like chuckers. All right. Colin Sexton during his Jazz tenure, true shooting percentage over 60 as a 6'2" point guard or a 6'2" guard, off guard. Like, the efficiency is there. He's not someone who is just jacking up shots and, making like 40% of them. He's not LaMelo.
I'm going to let that slide, and we're going to move on to our final topic, which I actually find semi-interesting. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander signs his Supermax extension, which checks in a little bit lower than we had thought, $285.4 million. Hopefully that's enough money for SGA and his wealth. I don't know if it is. His total contract value now is 6 years, $364.5 million. He signed through his age 32 season. His salary is going to be $79 million in that final year. The Shai stuff, this was just the single easiest decision the Thunder had this offseason, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What I find interesting is we're now getting to a point where if these cap projections hold, these max deals or any deal that is signed with an 8% raise is going to outpace the salary cap growth. So like Shai is basically projected to be worth over 37% of the salary cap by the end of this deal. And I'm curious, I know that sounds like a small number, but like typically you sign him to a 35% max, and at this rate, like they're normally worth like 29 or 30% by the end of it. I don't actually know offhand. And now if that value goes up, I am curious. OKC is not getting rid of Chet Holmgren or Jalen Williams. That is not
they're getting rid of Shai for earning too much money.
That's where this is going. They're going to trade Shai. No, I'm just curious to see how, if you get to a point where it's not 8+% of growth, like if that changes team building approaches at all, because you do have to then worry about those out years, because it's not just you're signing him at 35% and it was always going to be 35%. You're used to that number going down and now it's increasing. So when you look at it and say, oh, he's only worth 2% more of the salary cap, he's not. It's like really closer to like 7 or 8% more of the salary cap. Additionally, not in general. If he was worth only 8% of the salary cap, he'd be Kenrich Williams, basically.
You might have to tell our viewers and listeners why his salary can exceed the 35% max.
What do you mean? I thought I just did. He gets 8% raises and the cap off his max salary.
Oh, I actually thought you skirted over that. My
yeah.
bad.
Well, and again, maybe I was just rambling. So this is a little bit into the weeds, and I'm sure some people appreciate it, some people don't. But so Shai Gilgeous-Alexander signs his 35% of the salary cap max contract. You're capped in theory. Like your max salary is capped at that 35% of the salary cap, but you get raises off of that. His raises are going to be 8% year over year.
Off the base salary.
Off the base salary. So it's 8% of that initial salary in the first year of his deal.
Right.
When the cap, that's not a problem, but when the cap is only increasing by a projected like 7% or 6% rather than 10%, as his salary then goes up, he's actually accounting for a larger percentage of the salary cap, which that does impact team building mechanisms. And again, with Shai specifically, especially the timeline, his prime, he's still going to be in the middle of it when this ends. And so it's not, will Shai be worth this contract? No, that's not what this is about. It's just as this becomes more common around the league and these salary cap projections could hold, I'm just very interested to see if it changes approaches at all here.
Right. It's going to be a fascinating thing, just the annual races, because we heavily expected it would be 10% throughout basically the entire CPA. Now word is coming in 7%. But do we know how far out that is? Is it projected to be 7% year over year? Or is it just next season that's like in danger of coming in lower?
I think it's the out years as well, because the fact that he is worth, so like as of right now, Shai is expected to be 37.5%. of the salary cap in 2030 and
Okay.
2031.
Yeah.
So I wonder if automatically those projections just assume static growth
Right.
to where it's 7% next year, so now it's going to continue to rise by 7%.
You know what's going to be really messy is if there are some years where it's the full 10, then some it's like 6 or 7%, then it goes back to 10. It'll be like that will be just so tough just for NBA teams to navigate in, let alone us who sit behind a microphone. That's going to be hell.
Where if it's vacillating. But like that was kind of the before they had the cap smoothing effect. Like and I'm wondering, like it's just it's just something to put a pin in. It's not going to impact the Thunder. Their core is going to remain together, but this is something to put a pin in at a time when like you're kind of already putting a pin in. Okay, how is team spending changing in the era of the aprons? And I think, look, a lot of people have come away thinking that the middle class wasn't hurt and that this summer proves it. I guess they're right, but it also just feels like a lot of them just got paid by their own teams. Like we saw stuff like Ty Jerome, left Cleveland, but like the quote unquote middle class, I felt like a lot of them just went back to their teams, or like you see guys leaving, like Gershon Yabusele left for the mini MLE. So I don't really know.
Ty Jerome didn't even get $10 million a year. Yeah.
No, he got the room exception. And so like maybe you just view, Ty Jerome wasn't worth any more than that. It's just something to put a pin in at a time where, and also these numbers, someone pointed this out. I think it was Jared Dubin. I know that these salaries need to be conveyed in terms of cap percentages, which we just did with Shai's. That being said, it's just like you're going to get to a point where you've mentioned where the money's going to be so much that it doesn't matter and we're going to see someone take less. I'm just wondering, does that point come? And if so, when does it come? But I also sort of wonder, I don't think the discourse around the NBA is going to get any better when you start to see these raw numbers. Like if Anthony Edwards, as of right now, and I think because the cap projections are changing, he won't, but he was in line to be the NBA's first $100 million a year player when you look at the way that extensions will game out. I just feel like once you see players making $80 million a year or something, and then there's still going to be the talk about load management or the length of schedule, I feel like there's the potential for the NBA discourse to somehow deteriorate even further.
I didn't even know that was possible. Great. On that uplifting note, bye everyone. Great. Well, thanks, Dan.
Don't you see where I'm because like these numbers are I know we have to view them in terms of percentage of the cap, but like $80 million a year is like that's a ton of money.
Look, our mutual buddy Brian Toporek has made this point for years now. He's absolutely right. Eventually something like a player is going to look. No, we actually have seen Jalen Brunson, for example, say, look, that it's an enormous amount of money. I'm okay not taking like the full max. I'm okay not going that route. So the question is, are there going to be more players who do this? And I hope it's the stars because like they still earn a ton. And if some of that money will be like redistributed to the mid-tier guys or even the low-end guys,
like let you keep a core together. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's again, I don't like giving like the owners a built-in cop-out though. So it's like it's a very tricky situation, but and I think we will always try to remember, like the numbers are the numbers. And look, the reporting on them is never going to change. The NFL, don't they still, I don't know, I don't really follow it that closely anymore, but like they still report the entire contract value rather than just what's guaranteed. So
well, I feel like they do both. Like now the coverage is so like player X is signed for $53 million with $27 million guaranteed.
So, okay, that's good. I will say it probably becomes a little bit more difficult unless the agent is sending Shams this information of, look, like this is what the percentage of the salary cap is.
And then Shams is going to make sure he breaks it into 4 different tweets. And then if you don't catch all 4 of them, you have no idea what the fuck is going on. Yep.
Right.
Great.
So just something to monitor. But Shai, this was an easy decision for the Thunder. I expect J-Dub and Chet Holmgren to soon follow suit.
Right.
Mort, you got anything else you want to talk about before we skedaddle? We said we were going to do an hour, so true to form, we did about twice that much.
We did about twice. No, I'm just curious at what Frank Ntilikina is going to get on his next deal.
I mean, he's got to be the NBA's first $100 million a year. Like they're going to
sure.
circumvent the salary cap rules to play him.
Yeah, right.
To pay him that much. He'll have an ownership stake under the table with whoever signs him, I think.
So like the Lakers just sold for $10 billion. So how big of an ownership stake? Like
he will get probably 10% of the team,
right?
I would think, right? That feels fair.
That seems reasonable. Absolutely.
before we skedaddle, can you tell everyone who's watching, who's listening, where they can find you and all the work that you do?
Yes, sir. You can find my work over at Yahoo Sports, over at Forbes, at the NBA podcast, and on the off chance that you speak Danish, Buster Peter.
Until next time, and as always, we leave with a shout out to the one, the only, the NBA's first $1 billion a year player in the making, Mr. What's his name, Mort?